Sing a song of sovereignty. Sing a song of sovereignty.
Aloha Hawaii, this is Pokalai Nui, and you have just heard the musical version of the Song of Sovereignty. So let's go to our caller. Aloha caller, welcome to the program.
Aloha, Poka.
Hey, aloha.
Yeah, Poka. Now, this week I picked up the Honolulu Weekly.
Yes?
And, you know, it often has things that you can't find in the daily paper, yeah?
That's correct.
Because, obviously, the daily paper, I guess, to some extent, exercises censorship, I would say.
Yeah. And I see the Honolulu Weekly as sort of being maybe two steps ahead of and creating the news.
Right.
Oftentimes. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to point out about three things that I saw in this week's edition. One of them I found rather inspiring. It's the cover story. I'll get to that a little bit later. But the first thing was about, in March of last year, I don't know if it was the city council. I guess it was awarded a $1.4 billion rail car and operations contract to Ansaldo, Honolulu JV. This was done in spite of the fact that Ansaldo bid on the contract without a valid contractor's license.
That's right.
HRS 444 requires that the first offense for doing this is $2,500 or 40% of the contract price, whichever is greater. Since the contract is $1.4 billion, the fine should have been $560 million. However, the state RICO office fined Ansaldo $150,000. So this represents a loss of $559,850,000. Now, what? How come, huh?
Good
What's
question.
going on?
Good
I mean, if I
question.
was the contractor, would they do that for me? No.
Your name Ansaldo.
So somebody has filed suit with the assistance of Michael Green
I see. Okay.
for declaratory relief and a writ of mandamus,
Yeah. Okay.
which would force
The government to do what
the
they need to do.
DCCA and RICO to enforce the law and fine Ansaldo the correct amount.
Wow.
So we will see what happens, huh?
Sometimes this is what you call a QTAM action. When you force a government or you force someone to do the recovery that they're supposed to do, or it's also dealing with this False Claims Act, then the person who files the claim gets 10% of the bounty.
Oh.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now, I haven't checked out this particular law, and I don't know if that 10% would apply here. But there is that kind of stuff, especially when you squeal on somebody who's been abusing Medicaid, for example, when the doctor keeps billing and billing when they never even see the patient. So the bookkeeper or the fiscal officer turns the company in.
Right.
So they have that kind of benefits. But I don't know what happens here. But I think it's still a good point that you raise. How come they're kissing up to one organization and yet not being fair across the board? Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably less than the compensation for one of their executives, huh? I would think. 150,000. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well. And then on there's another article here that points out that so far there's been a lack of local contractors involved in the construction of the rail project. Yeah.
And yet they're promising jobs, yo.
Yeah. Pearl Johnson expressed concern about a lack of local contractors involved. Does this mean local companies don't even get a chance to bid? And then the Kiewit Building Group vice president, who would oversee the project, said, we advertise in the newspapers, we advertise on our website, and he estimated that 75 to 80% of the majority of the construction will be handled by his company.
Now that company is famous for importing workers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a Australian company. Yeah? I think it is, but they've been known. They are infamous for bringing in foreign workers into Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it ends by saying local contractors looking for a piece of a $5 billion pie may already be too late to get aboard this money train.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's lots of workers out there who say, "Oh, build this thing, right? It'll put us to work." Yeah. I think they're going to really be disappointed, huh?
You heard of the guy named Grabowska?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And he's
Grabowskas.
Yeah, Grabowskas.
Yeah.
He's the one that is going to head up all of this. The new guy who's heading the.
Yeah.
Where is he from?
Massachusetts.
What? You mean he's not local?
Right. And he refused to answer any questions from the city council until after his confirmation.
After his confirmation.
Yeah. After his confirmation.
And the confirmation is not going to be by the city council?
Oh, it's already been done.
And who confirmed him?
The
Hart board.
Yeah, Hart.
And who controls the Hart board? Go ahead.
Well, Hart is independent, huh?
So city council has no control over that.
Right.
It's nuts. It's nuts.
Yeah. And you look at his compensation package. According to Hawaii Reporter, it could amount to over $900,000 just for him, when you consider housing allowance, transportation allowance, his base pay, incentives, performance bonus.
But it's only 3 times more than the governor, right?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Roughly. But if we pay coaches for football teams about the same amount, is it the same? I think it's about half of that, yeah?
Well, for Chow, yeah. I mean, it'll be substantially less than that. Yeah,
it's a crazy world. Yeah, go ahead.
And then finally, on the happier note, they have a wonderful article on Kenneth Brown.
Oh, is that right?
And boy, I learned quite a bit about him. I didn't know these things about him. I mean, this guy is really, I would call him a Hawaiian patriot. I think you would enjoy the article.
I will. I haven't heard, and I know him personally, and have done some work with an organization he created, more through Pua rather than myself, and he helped to create an organization known as Friends of the Future.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was covered in the article, but excellent idea of let's create a not-for-profit entity and looking at the future of Hawaii and trying to deal with the very basic kind of stuff like cultural principles and the rest.
Right. Yeah. That's so much of what this article has to say.
I see.
The article is written by someone, I guess a woman who has been a longtime friend of
Kenny.
Well, one of his daughters.
I see.
She first met him when she was 11 years old, and went over to his house. And she said he asked me who I was, and when I blurted out my name, he repeated it and said with feeling, "Welcome." And she goes on to say, I felt that way ever since in their home, filled always with the sound of the waves. I guess he lives near where his Uncle Francis used to live, at Ke'awaiki.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember being. And yet, I think I had been at his home once.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember. Now, there was supposed to be an event honoring him.
Yes, yeah. On I see it'll be on the 21st of this month. Malama, Hawaii will present him and his wife with an award in their name.
I see. Okay.
According to Miley Meyer,
Oh, all right.
a member of the environmental nonprofit Malama, Hawaii.
Hmm.
See, Miley and Senator Akaka's son,
Okay.
Danny,
Okay.
were among a group of young Hawaiians who had talk story sessions with Kenny Brown in the 70s
Mm-hmm.
and were inspired to found the Native Hawaiian Hospitality Association.
Okay. Was Kanahele, George Kanahele
George Kanahele, yeah, okay.
in the article?
Yeah,
Okay.
it says that in 1981,
Mm-hmm.
Kenny and his wife, along with Myron and Thompson and his wife,
Uh-huh.
went to Aotearoa.
Okay.
And it was really really inspiring to Kenny.
Mm.
Seeing how the Maori had preserved their cultural institutions and moved by the close similarity in the languages, Brown finally sat in his skin as a Hawaiian.
Interesting.
See, when he grew up,
Yeah.
he was like my parents' generation,
Mm-hmm.
although he had the koko
Yeah.
that, the Ike, Hawaii was withheld from them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, with the intent that, well, it's for your own good, because otherwise
Yeah,
you'll be,
yeah.
ostracized and
Yeah.
ridiculed and punished even, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And, really, as you know, they started the turnaround in the 60s, but in 1981, when he went there,
Mm-hmm.
it really left a...
Did the article
impression.
say that he never heard his father speak the Hawaiian language
yeah,
except
yeah.
for one instant?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
okay.
says, I didn't even know my father could speak Hawaiian, he remembers.
Yeah.
He wanted us to grow up like howlers.
Yeah.
He recalls seeing his dad, of course, he could speak. I mean, he was fluent in it, yeah?
Yes.
He recalls seeing his dad at parties, gravitating to the Hawaiian musicians and looking at them. There was a huge, poignant feeling of pathos there.
Mm-hmm.
And, just a wonderful article here.
Yeah. Wow.
Which speaks about his visions and the things that he did, the institutions that he led, the Bishop Museum, the East-West Center, the Queens Medical Center.
Yeah.
When he was the chairman of the board at Queens, he used to hold the meetings at Mauna Ala, at the Queen's tomb, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
So take a look at that.
Okay, I will. While you're still on the
Yeah.
line, let me recall for you some of the small work that we did. That's Pua and I, with the what was that organization? Friends of the Future. There was for a long time unsettled question of how Waipio Valley would move into the future, and there
Right.
were farmers who were farming in Waipio, but they could not get a long-term lease from
Right.
Bishop Museum,
Ah,
because the museum didn't know how to respond as landowners.
Yeah.
They were business of operating museums.
right.
And yet Kenny was chairing the museum
Right.
board as well at that time. And so through Friends of the Future, they first asked Pua if she could step in, because her forte had been and still is as a sort of a cultural translator between the maka'ainana and the more corporate world or the haulified world. And one of the experiences was in when we had this big battle in West Beach, which is now called Ko'olina. and Poor, along with Eric Enos and some others, were leading the Waianae groups and the farmers against a development in Ko'olina. So anyway, she went in and she started relating to the farmers there, and would speak with Kenny, and Kenny was spokesperson really for the board of Bishop Museum. And then I was asked to come in from the legal side to also meet with the farmers and try to come up with a proposal for a lease agreement.
Mhm.
So eventually we finally came out to develop an agreement that was for a period of 20 years, I believe, because previously they would only give 1-year leases, and the farmers were saying, how can we really farm and invest and really plant our crop, not being sure that we would have a long-term guarantee of being here. And so when we got in, we started talking with the farmers, we started talking with the museum folks, and what we came out with, especially working under the umbrella of Friends of the Future and with that kind of vision, we asked, what is the interest that we are really representing in this case? Do we represent the farmers' interest? Do we represent the museum interest? And who speaks for the Aina?
Mhm. Oh.
And so we came up with, what was that I called it? A preambular statement. And we talked about what is Waipio. What is that Pio, like that rainbow, that connection, and that vai, and what is the meaning of Waipio? And we talked about how the waters as it flowed into the valley then would evaporate, go back up into the sky, and then it would come down as rain and flow back into the valley. And you had that kind of relationship of this constant move, and it was a particular mana in this valley that was so important for the native Hawaiians. And if anything else, it wasn't to preserve the interests of the museum or preserve the interests of the farmers, but to preserve the respect for the Aina and to contain that history and that memory and to hold sacred this relationship, this Aina. And so it was based on that preambular statement that the parties were able to get together and agree to a 20-year lease, but it was always with the keeping in mind the sacredness of the valley that provided that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mentioned, in fact, in an article that
Oh, they did mention that?
it's little wonder that in the 1990s, Brown worked with Friends of the Future to preserve long-term leases for taro farmers in Waipio Valley. You know, I didn't. His family used to own over 16,000 acres at Waipio here on Oahu.
I see.
Up until 1950, and then they sold it to Hawaiian Pineapple Company
I see.
with the understanding that the land would continue to be cultivated. But you know, that wasn't you know, that did not happen. So he knows how irreplaceable lands. You know what can happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that song that I learned a long time ago. You know, hey no keia no Waipio. That's about his grandmother's home. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that was about his grandmother's home.
Yeah.
There was an attorney who represented the museum at that time, and his name was Art Reinwald. You know, Art Reinwald turned me in to the disciplinary council when I told Sam King that I was not an American citizen. I wasn't going to sign his documents and to serve on the American jury sitting in judgment of the Anara Hawaiian. So Sam King threatened to take my license away. Art Reinwald, who was the president of the Bar Association, I had just gotten my license a year or two before that. So they came down on me, and Reinwald and I had not seen eye to eye, and and sort of, I never spoke with him, but we were sort of mortal enemies. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, at that time, he was the attorney for the Bishop Museum Board.
Mhm.
And I was being asked by Friends of the Future to step in and to see if I could do some legal work for them. And so I then had to work with Art Reinwald. And we ended up being best of friends.
Nah.
Yeah, and he never turned me in after that for whatever
Oh, yeah?
shenanigans I was up to.
Did he come around on his, on his stance?
I think,
Did he
well,
come and see
maybe
the
he
light?
didn't agree with me, but he, as far as what he said, he found great respect for my integrity and my willingness to stand up.
Mhm.
And I guess he had seen more of what I was really getting at
Mhm.
about the illegalities and all. But we didn't focus on that.
Yeah.
Most of our focus was how we're going to write up this document,
Mhm.
which was unheard of before, because he was looking at it from a very corporate view, representing that interest.
Right,
And
yeah.
I was trying to bring about this visioning for, the longer term Hawaii and the importance of Aina and Mana and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
But he was very cooperative, and I don't know if Kenny twisted his arm a number of times or what, but he was very cooperative.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
think we came up with a beautiful document that and even to this day, I have no qualms about showing them what this lease contained, as well as what we did with the Ko'olina documents. But we've run out of time. You forced me to talk, and I lost track of time. We got to go to the news, brother. So thank you
Ahui ho.
very much, and thanks for calling. Ahui ho.
Ahui ho.
Kaulana nā pua o Hawaii Kupa a mahope o ka aina Iki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala a nunu me ka paka Mane mai Hawaii moku o ke ave Koku ana honoa o Pilani Ka ko'o mai ka ua i o mano Pa'aku me ke oni o ka kuhi hewa Aolea e kau i ka pulima Maluna o ka pepa o ka enemi Po o hui ai nā ku ai hewa I ka pono sivila a o ke kanā